obviously DarkFi is much more than some of the stuff you've mentioned. You also have this Lunarpunk thing, and you have a bunch of there's a bunch of like philosophies and things connected to it. What else is DarkFi apart from the tools? Could you maybe like explain what Lunarpunks are, what Lunarpunk is, and maybe just touch on some of the philosophies, and then we can go a bit deeper into them after that.
Yeah, totally. So I would say that DarkFi, as well as being like a blockchain and a set of tools, is also a movement and a community. And I think what unites us as a movement is the idea that anonymity allows us to carve out these spaces outside the reach of the surveillance paradigm. So, I see DarkFi as very much an affirmative project based on an affirmative and positive conception of freedom, which is that anonymity enables people to create their own destinies beyond the restricted space of surveillance, basically. So that's what Lunarpunk is. I see it as a revival and a resurgence of the crypto-anarchist ideals, but it comes with a critique of cypherpunk and also solarpunk kind of built in. So I guess I should recap briefly on all this punk stuff. We've been
Yeah,
just
yeah,
used
yeah.
about like four punks in the one sentence. So like it goes back to the 80s, at least the 80s, where we have cyberpunk. And cyberpunk was a and is a sci-fi genre, and it's pioneered by William Gibson. It created a vision of the future, which at the time of its creation was very prophetic, because that cyberpunk world that was envisioned by Gibson, it didn't actually exist yet. There were some hints that it could exist, but really he did this amazing work of imagining it, and that also um, compelled played a part in compelling that future into reality. So he in a way created that future through fiction, which is I think a big part of what punk in general, all the punks try to do, is like use science fiction to create new visions of technology, and through that process actually steer the course of technology toward that imagined direction. So the cyberpunk vision, it's quite dystopic. It's quite individualistic, in that it usually depicts a kind of lone wolf type character who's at war with, the dystopian corporate empire, and it has a lot of cool like psychedelic aesthetics and biohacking and like interesting stuff going on beyond that. But that's like a quick overview. Then in the 90s, we have the emergence of cypherpunk, which cypherpunk is very interesting. It's a little bit like cyberpunk, but it brings in this element of encryption, and encryption ends up being this it ends up changing the when it's brought in the technique of encryption is brought into cyberpunk. It completely changes where that future goes, because in my view, it stops being this dystopic story of like the lone hacker war with the corporations, and it starts being a little bit more interesting. It's like suddenly we have this new tactic um that the cypherpunk gorilla can wield, that is like incredibly powerful, that can render all the heavy machinery of the surveillance state like ineffective. And it's a very simple tool, so it's like it completely restructures the power dynamic that in a way in the cyberpunk vision was quite oppressive. It becomes much more a narrative about emancipation, but still, it's still very much within the kind of American libertarian paradigm of being very individualist, and also um, it's like I would argue that it has a kind of negative conception of freedom where it's like freedom from certain things, so like freedom from coercion, but there's not a clear assertion of like what is the positive vision of freedom that's being proposed. So that's where, like, I'm a big fan of cypherpunk. Cypherpunk was what got me into crypto, and I think many of us are the same inside of crypto. So like, load of respect for that movement, and I don't want to disrespect it, but I also want to, in a loving way, like, criticize its limitations. And so, that's where Lunarpunk comes in. It's Lunarpunk is it uses the lunar kind of thing, what do you call that, prefix, um, because also because it contains a critique of solarpunk, which solarpunk emerges in around the 2000s, arguably, and that's kind of puts aside the cypherpunk and the cyberpunk, and it says, okay, how about we try and imagine a future which is like actually nice and like there's like actually inspiring, and doesn't involve like these terrible outcomes for humanity, um like maybe we should put more effort into that, and then maybe that will also help us build these positive versions of the future. So that's what solarpunk is, and it was very influential in crypto, especially Ethereum. However, in Ethereum, it also comes with this kind of naive promotion of transparency, which Lunarpunk is very critical of, because we still adopt the cypherpunk dialectic of anonymity versus surveillance, and we see like any kind of transparency centered paradigm as a surveillance paradigm. So we criticize solarpunk on that basis, and we propose Lunarpunk as an alternative, which takes from solarpunk its affirmative kind of future positivity. So basically we take its utopianism, but we also, from cypherpunk, we take this dialectic of encryption versus surveillance, and we also try to propose a positive like vision of freedom, where we argue that anonymity is the means by which people create a new destiny. So it's actually the means by which people can achieve self-determination, and it's no longer about freedom from this and that and the other, but rather freedom to assert a new destiny. And this is also where agorism comes in, like, very heavily to the Lunarpunk narrative. We're very much influenced by agorism, where agorism is about how do we use this technique of black markets to carve out free spaces that are outside of the state. So Lunarpunk is very, very similar, but it expands this operation of like this like of succession of like leaving the state-based civilization to anonymity in general. So it's not just about black markets; it's about any kind of process of going dark that allows us to carve out these new spaces for freedom beyond the reach of the surveillance state.